This just into our newsroom. The Riverside County Sheriff's Department just announced an arrest from former President Donald Trump's rally in Coachella. Deputies say they arrested a 49-year-old Las Vegas man who had a loaded firearm and a high-capacity magazine. The man was arrested yesterday at a checkpoint outside the grounds of the rally. He was released on bail.
So I drive up with my special entry pass, and by the way, they're saying I had a counterfeit pass. That's a bunch of nonsense. I could prove that I had a special entry pass directed to me, sent directly to me by officials within the Republican Party of Nevada. I was an actual invitee to that event. This arresting officer's goal was to make an example of a Trump supporter, was to persecute a Trump supporter having nothing to do with the law.
I guess the guy followed me on social media. This video is brought to you by TatumStore.com. TatumStore.com. Go right now and get you a yard sign. They're available right now. Check your email if you put your email in to notify me, or if not, and you've just been waiting for it to be back in stock. The yard signs are back in stock. The Trump Vance yard signs are back in stock. Get them now because they're going to be out of here. There was probably double the amount of people that requested than that we have in stock. So if everybody that was requested buy one, you ain't going to get yours, all right? So go on and get it if you want it now. Link will be in the description section. Put a discount code up here, Nick, for the people that are watching. Here's a discount that you can use for the store. And I'd say if you use the discount, you might as well get a sign and some merch. Like and subscribe to the channel. Let's get into this. Ladies and gentlemen, I think it's just getting weird. And my focus is this, because I looked it up and I found that the guy followed me on social media. So what does this mean, right? If the guy follows me on social media, I don't think he's trying to take out Trump, more than likely. If in the guy's profile picture, he has a picture of Donald Trump doing this, I don't think he's trying to take out Trump. If he got a $5,000 bond and he's at home right now, I don't think it's any indication that he tried to take out Trump. Now, is the man brain functioning properly? I don't know. Because there's no way in the world you end up getting arrested at a Trump rally the way you got arrested for the things that Sheriff Bianco arrested you for. That's my critique, and I'm going to critique the guy as soon as we put all the totality of evidence together. Let's start with I'm going to start with the news clip real quick so you guys can put this entire thing in a context, because there's the news, there's Bianco's statement, and then there is his statement. So the gentleman that got arrested came out and made a statement because he's obviously on bond.
This just into our newsroom. The Riverside County Sheriff's Department just announced an arrest from former President Donald Trump's rally in Coachella. Deputies say they arrested a 49-year-old Las Vegas man who had a loaded firearm and a high-capacity magazine. The man was arrested yesterday at a checkpoint outside the grounds of the rally. He was released on bail last night. The Sheriff's Department says the incident did not impact the safety of former President Trump or any of the attendees. Still pretty frightening.
Yeah, so that should tell you almost everything you need to know about, was this an assassination attempt, right? Clearly it wasn't. And I just wish that conservatives would take a little bit of time and not try to be the first to stories and go viral, but to do a little research. That's why sometimes I feel like, man, I'm late on a story, but I just want to make sure I got it right. When I heard another attempt, I said, well, okay, let me see the details, right? And if they say, oh, the guy was found with guns and everything, I was like, okay. But I know as a former cop, that's not enough to say this it was an attempt. It's suspicious enough to investigate. Maybe a person can get arrested for something, but you got to be very clear about, is it an attempt or not, because it cheapens the actual attempts, because somebody actually had every intention to take him out at the golf course. The other guy shot him. Ended up hurting somebody at his rally. Those are actual real situations. Let's not conflate the two. But let me let you hear what Sheriff Bianco said, and then I'm going to play what the guy said, and then I'm going to probably rip him one after it.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for coming here today. I am Chad Bianco. I'm the Sheriff of Riverside County, and we are obviously here to talk about an incident that occurred yesterday at the rally that former President Trump had in Coachella. Yesterday afternoon, before former President Trump arrived to the rally, we made contact with an individual on the inner perimeter of our operation at the rally. As you can imagine, this was a very large event. In regard to previous attempts on the former president's life, this was not something that we were taking lightly. We had a very detailed plan in place on how we were going to keep not only the former president safe, but all of the participants or the attendees of the rally safe. In general terms, I will tell you that we had a larger outside perimeter and then an inside perimeter that was completely controlled by us, by Riverside County Sheriff's deputies, and both of them served different purposes. Only people that were allowed inside the perimeter, the outside perimeter, in a vehicle was if you lived there or if you had documentation that said you were going to this rally. He approached the outside perimeter, gave all indications that he belonged there, that he was a participant that was allowed to get into VIP and to and a press corps, and so he was allowed through that outer perimeter. As he got to the inside perimeter, where deputies were conducting obviously a more thorough evaluation of the vehicles that were coming in, there were many irregularities that popped up. The deputy noticed that the interior of the vehicle was in quite disarray. The vehicle had an obviously fake license plate, and that prompted further investigation from our deputy into why the person was there and what he was doing. During that investigation, the deputy eventually found multiple passports with multiple names, multiple driver's license with different names. The vehicle was unregistered, and the license plate was what we in law enforcement would recognize as one that is homemade and indicative of a group of individuals that claim to be sovereign citizens. And assuming the deputy assumes that he was part of that identifying group. So during the investigation, obviously those identification documents were found, in addition to a loaded handgun and a shotgun. Obviously, this was before the former president arrived. The person was taken into custody. He was eventually booked into jail on those charges, and eventually he was released. He will have to further his court case in the future.
All right. So we kind of got that point, right? He's an idiot to a certain degree. I don't know the man, but what make you think, with all that happened to Donald Trump, and I'm going to play the clip of his explanation. I haven't watched it yet. But what make you think, with all the stuff that went on with Donald Trump, that you can take your fake license plate, because he may be one of those sovereign citizens, and I can explain the sovereign citizen just real quick. There's a group of people that don't believe they have to abide by any government regulation, like anything. That means that, you see them. I think these people are so crazy to me, but you see them on the freeway, they get pulled over and they say, I don't consent to something, or I'm not driving, I'm traveling. And they just say all this crazy stuff. And when we were in law enforcement, they would make a license plate up and write it in by hand and be like, this is my license plate. I don't comply or whatever, something. And all those people normally are super dangerous to law enforcement. Not all of them, but most of those people are super dangerous, because if you try to enforce anything on them, they believe they can shoot you and get away with it and everything is fine, that they should be able to. They really believe that they're completely sovereign, meaning they live in a society where they can do whatever they want to do, or whatever the case may be. And I do not like that mentality. I don't like people like that. I think it's idiotic. Now, I don't know what made this man, and maybe he explains it. I don't know what make him think that makes sense, that you're a sovereign citizen type, or you wrote a fake license plate on, that you will go into a Trump rally with guns on you. You got several guns in your vehicle, and you're going to try to take that vehicle into a venue where Donald Trump they tried to hurt him multiple times. You don't just do that. Let me go back. He didn't just go into a venue with guns in the vehicle. Nobody would have ever said anything to him. He knows he has a fake plate on the back of his car because he's a one of these people that don't believe in abiding by the government whatsoever. And then you got guns in the car. So you're like saying, please, somebody pull me over, do an investigation because I clearly got fake plates on my car. And while I'm here, I got passports, fake IDs, guns. What are you doing? And I guess this is alleged because he haven't been charged with anything in the court of law, but that's what Sheriff Bianco said. And Bianco is an incredible patriot, and I believe Sheriff Bianco. Now, let me listen to what he has to say.
The reason that God put me in that situation in order to be able to expose really what's going on.
Okay, let's hear it.
And so every time I've gone to a Nevada rally and notified the police, it's been a non-issue. They've thanked me for the courtesy of notifying them. They've said, obviously, you can't take your firearms. I wouldn't even think of doing such a stupid thing. And they've been fine. They've been fine. And the critical mistake I made is, I guess, forgetting the location that I was in California. So I drive up with my special entry pass. And by the way, they're saying I had a counterfeit pass. That's a bunch of nonsense. I could prove that I had a special entry pass directed to me, sent directly to me by officials within the Republican Party of Nevada. I was an actual invitee to that event. So as I'm driving, there's an area where you enter the parking lot after you pass a sheriff. I pull up to the sheriff. I say, well, I should take that back. I'm not 100% sure he was a sheriff. He was wearing a sheriff vest, but a lot of those individuals were. And my assumption is that not everybody there was a sheriff. They were just trying to indicate that they work with the sheriff's department. And so I drive up to this sheriff and I tell him,
technically, just to throw it out there, technically, you cannot wear sheriff if you are not a sheriff. You have to accompany your tactical gear with the badge. A badge and a sheriff label is only for sheriffs. People who are not sheriffs cannot present with the word sheriff on their uniforms because they're not sheriffs, right? So when I was a cop, you couldn't have a shirt that says police on the back because you're not a police officer. So you would have to have explorer or whatever title we give people who are actually work with us that are not police officers. They had to wear something different. They cannot wear a police uniform. And they're like, oh, I'm a CSO. No, they'll put CSO on the back. You can't do that. So who knows, man? Maybe they're doing it in California. But so if you see a person with a sheriff tactical vest on, they probably are sheriff's deputies.
That, in full transparency, I just want to let you know in the back of my truck, I got, 2 lawful firearms, purchased lawfully, registered lawfully. And I'm just letting you know that that's back there as a courtesy, which is a courtesy that I always do.
I'm going to let him finish real quick. When I went to California, I looked up the laws in California, and they're ridiculous. But I had to abide by it because I had to bring my gun with me. And so I had to put my gun in a lockbox, the ammo and gun separated, all that stupid stuff. But I'm intelligent enough to know to do that because I don't want to run into any issues. I think he made a mistake by that's a crucial mistake. It's not just I overlooked it. That's a crucial mistake, bro. You're going to a Trump rally. You're not just driving down the street in the streets of California. You're going to a Trump rally. Okay.
That police officer asks me to pull over. So I pull over, and just so everybody's clear out there, it's not like they found that I had firearms or did an investigation, blah, blah, blah. No. The body cams and the evidence will expose and reveal that I myself drove up to the sheriff and gave him the common courtesy and respect of letting him know about the firearms I had in the back of my truck. At this point, they make me pull over. A police officer comes to my window. And what I have to say about this particular moment is that knowing how some police officers behave, and I'm indicating that they behave in a fashion where they seem to not understand the laws and the Constitution, I'm usually more armed and alert. But when I was arriving there, I wasn't feeling well. I have certain health demands, I guess you could say, that require me to regulate my blood sugar level and also require me to have basically my water bottle, which I'll put a couple of different supplements in there that whenever I'm having issues and I feel like my blood sugar is all over the place, I drink some of that stuff and it helps me to regulate it, right? At this moment, I certainly wasn't feeling great. I wasn't at my sharpest. And when this police officer came to my window, I rolled the window down and he asked me to get out of my car.
Okay.
I got out of my car. He asked me to turn around, put my hands behind my back, which is what I did. He handcuffed me at that juncture. I said, "Why are you handcuffing me?" He said he's doing it for his own protection, which, I mean, we could talk about that topic as well, because I don't know ever in the history of humankind where there's been an individual like me that's rolled up and said, "I have 2 firearms in my trunk," clearly indicating that I'm not there to cause any problems. I'm not there for anything nefarious. But nonetheless, this police officer felt threatened when he's the one with the firearm right then and there. But
He don't know if you got it there and then and there, if you're honest about it. I mean, how would the cop know you being honest? You show up to a rally with guns in California with I hope he talk about the license plate. You got to be reasonable, bro. Like, it's crazy out here. You're at a Trump rally with guns and allegedly a fake plate. Like, you become suspicious. Can't you see?
complied with him. I complied with him because my impression of most Trump rallies was that the police officers there were respectful of the Constitution and appreciated that I was upfront about the lawful firearms within my car. At this point, they put me in the back of a police car, which is scorching hot. And frankly, I'm feeling faint at this point, and I'm having difficulty speaking. I've been driving for hours, and frankly, I had to go to the bathroom very badly, to a point where it was giving me a headache, and my blood sugar being off, me being in the back of that truck or police car in the scorching heat, which was akin to a sauna, was really causing me health problems, causing me heart palpitations, causing me breathing issues. And they just stuck me back there, closed the door in this sauna-like police car. And it came to a point where I had to start like knocking on, well, I should say knocking. I was hitting the door with my feet because my hands were handcuffed behind my back. And I'm just like trying to make noise so that I could get their attention, because I've been inside there for an hour. And if you could imagine, with your blood sugar all over the place, heart palpitating, being in a sauna-like environment is not the healthiest.
Now, if what he's saying is true, he should file a formal complaint against those cops, because as a police officer, you never put somebody in the back of the car without having AC on or without having the windows down where the person can adequately get enough airflow. A cop should be disciplined if they ever put somebody in the back of a car and they didn't give them adequate amount of air conditioning, where they're sweating in the back of a car, especially while they're being detained and not arrested. Well, not as this was the point where he got arrested. I don't know. But you should never put a person in that position. So if that's true, he should file a formal complaint with them, and body-worn camera and everything would be validating or not. I doubt that they did him like that, but people do that, and they should be held accountable if they did that.
Situation to be in. I actually felt like I might faint and be hospitalized. And finally, the police officers come there. I pretty much begged them to get my water, which has 2 supplements in there that could have helped my health. They refused to, because they're like, what if there's something in there? And I know what they're trying to indicate is that like there's cyanide or something in there, and I'm gonna drink some of it and off myself, because they were onto this insane theory that I was there to cause harm. And so they refused me what I needed, which was my medication. They kept me in the car. They did turn on the AC after what was hour, I don't even know. And it's hard for me to know the exact time. It could have been an hour, it could have been an hour and a half of this torturous experience. I don't know, because frankly, I was too lightheaded and I was almost fainting. When I explained to them what was going on, they said, we could take you to the hospital. I'm like, rather than take me to the hospital, what if you just get me my water? And they refused to do so. And they gave me, one of the police officers put water in front of my mouth and poured it in there and stuff.
Oh my God, bro. I'm trying not to go hard against this dude because he followed me, and I feel bad when people follow me and I blast them. But my man, like, your story isn't really sounding that good right now, because I had just made mention, never hearing his speech, that they can't put you in the car without doing the air conditioning. Then you admitted that they turned the air conditioning on at some point. And then I said, he talked about his water. And in my mind, I'm like, we would not give a person water that's having a medical emergency. Like, or if he having a medical emergency, he should want to go to the hospital. We can arrange that. So he just now said they ended up putting the air conditioning on and they ended up giving him water. Now, I just the fact that he has admitted that they've done that for him at some point makes me believe that the officers will have a different perspective. That the officer would say, no, we put him in an air-conditioned thing the whole time. It was totally fine. And he wanted his water. We refused to give him the water. And we had water in the trunk, so we gave him the other trunk. He didn't want that water that we were going to give him because he had some stuff in it, but we couldn't verify. So we told him we'll give him some regular water, or he can go to the hospital. He refused. And I can just imagine that being the case, but I wasn't there.
Eventually, they did give me my water bottle.
They eventually gave him his water bottle. Okay.
But that was hours later. So, at this juncture, I'm in the back of the truck and I'm demanding from this arresting police officer that I get my one phone call, which he refuses. He also refuses to tell me what's going on. He does ask me, he does come up to me and say that, and this is again reflected by the body cameras, which we're going to be doing a FOIA request on, or I should say a FOIA demand. There was another avenue to this, which is internal affairs report, that I was told it was a way to go and attain those body cam recordings. So what this body cam will expose is that this police officer came up to me and he basically said that, look, we just want to make sure your law firms are properly registered, that they're lawfully purchased. I say, sure. I tell them the exact locations of the firearms. I tell them they're welcome to grab the firearms and I have nothing to hide. And this was done under the guise of they just need to run serials to make sure that this is part of the National Registry and that it is indeed my firearms. Well, next thing these guys do is that they completely ransack everything in my car. And when I say ransack, I had 3 suitcases in there, including clothes, including crucial medication and supplements, including my laptop computer and iPad, camera equipment, tripods, recording equipment, basically all the equipment I would need in order to produce content. And to be very clear, I wasn't there under media. I was there as a special guest, and I wasn't taking any of that equipment in there because I was not there as media. But I had been in Los Angeles prior.
So let's talk about this. Now, maybe it wasn't communicated to him, but if a law enforcement agency have reasonable suspicion to believe that you could potentially be an assassin, reasonable suspicion, they don't have to have, preponderance of evidence and reasonable suspicion. I mean, a reasonable person will believe that you could be suspiciously involved in this. You got fake plates. He didn't even talk about the plates yet. Hopefully get to it. You got fake plates. You got guns in the car. You've come to a Trump rally. They believe they can't verify your credentials. Those things line up to a cop reasonably believing that you could have come here with the former assassination attempts, that you could be here to do something nefarious. And with that being said, can they go in your glove box unless you had a gun in there? Can they start unzipping bags unless they find indicia of a furtherance of a crime? I don't know if they can do that. Now, if they go into the car and they look for the guns and they start finding passports laying everywhere and they start seeing passports with different names on it, then therefore that becomes more suspicious evidence that there is something else afoot here. And then they could probably start searching a lot more areas. I mean, it depends on what their articulation is. It get too intrusive, or they need to be more intrusive, then they'll get a warrant. Or here's another side. If they take you to jail, they have to tow your vehicle. There's a policy position called search incident to arrest. Or they search your vehicle because it's being impounded. So let me say this. When your car is impounded, the police have a right to go through your car and search it. Because they got to make sure there's no dead bodies, there's no illegal substances or nothing when they take it to the tow yard. Because if they take it to the tow yard and you got explosives in your car or you got some drugs in your car, then it becomes a liability issue. So they have to go through and methodically check and make sure that you don't have anything illegal, any guns or anything else in your car before they release it to the tow truck company. And also, they inventory certain things. So therefore, when they tow the truck and you say, I had $1 million in the car, the cop can say, no, I searched everywhere in the car and there was no $1 million when we searched the car. So if this person said that they had $1 million, it wasn't in there when we searched the car before we gave it to the tow truck company. Or they say, I had 6 guns. I didn't have 2, I had 6. And they go, we searched the vehicle and there was only 2 guns found in the vehicle, and we put that on the report. So that's another thing that maybe he don't understand that could have happened here that would explain some of that. They could be wrong. I'm just giving you an example of how police work.
And that evidence will show that I'd gone from Nevada to Los Angeles for the purpose of attaining content, and then I went to Coachella. So I just happened to have this stuff in my car, which is all my equipment, hard drives, and all the things that I've stated. And so at this juncture, they go into such forensic detail with tearing my car apart. There's bomb sniffing dogs there. They're looking at the serial numbers. They're opening up everything in my car. I mean, they're checking the mufflers. They're checking underneath it because obviously they were on this, frankly, idiotic notion that I was there to cause harm. And mind you, the right thing I believe to have been done is when I asked the police officer, hey, I have firearms. And I actually said, like, when I first drove up there, I said, look, if it's an issue, I could do a U-turn and go away because, you know, I understand, you know, because I could tell from his reaction that he wasn't reacting the way our Nevada police would have reacted to that sort of comment. And I said, look, man, I could just turn around and go, man, I don't even need to go to this rally, you know, but they chose to have me apprehended and arrested, right? So they ransacked the crap out of my car, and lo and behold, they find absolutely nothing. I think it was clear that this was an attempt to find incriminating information or evidence upon myself, because carrying a firearm is protected by our Constitution. And say they found other, you know, something nefarious in there, that would clearly be a way to justify what they were doing. But there was no justification. During this time, I hear this arresting officer call me a maggot and one of those dumb Trump people to a female officer. And he didn't know that I had overheard what he said. And at this point, it becomes very clear that this arresting officer's goal was to make an example of a Trump supporter, was to persecute a Trump supporter having nothing to do with the law. That was very clear by his behavior, by how he spoke with me. And so they tear my car apart, and clearly.
And let me add this. I find that difficult to believe, although I wasn't there, right? If he heard that, that's what he heard. Sheriff Bianco is probably one of the most conservative sheriffs in the entire country. Now, it's confusing whether or not this gentleman is articulating clearly which agency, because he said a police officer. Technically, it's a sheriff's deputy. But the average person is just called out on police. But there's a difference between municipal police and sheriff deputies. Because Sheriff Bianco take credit for the arrest and booking him, that must mean that the sheriff's department was doing the investigation. So everybody he's dealing with must be a sheriff's deputy. and that's their jurisdiction too, according to Sheriff Bianco. Sheriff Bianco is a raging conservative. So the chances of that many officers coming together to take a Trump supporter down, to me, I don't believe that would be the case, given the fact that if you target a Trump supporter illegally, inappropriately, you're probably going to lose your job because Sheriff Bianco ain't going to have it. That's just my 2 cents.
They find nothing. Then this arresting police officer comes back and says that they're going to throw me in jail and that they're going to impound my car. Tow truck comes eventually, takes my car with all my equipment, my clothes, my medication. And this clothes that you're seeing me wear, the jeans that I'm wearing, I've been wearing for now, it's the 3rd day. After spending 4 hours in a car, at least 1 to 1.5 hours of which was a sauna. So you could imagine Coachella, I'm standing outside sweating, I'm inside a car, I'm sweating. So right now I feel gross, to be very clear. And so
let me go with the impound in the vehicle with medicine in it. If he articulated to police officers that he had medication that he needed, they, by law, have to provide him with that medication. They cannot leave that medication in the vehicle to be towed away. If he said, I have medication that I need in the car, they will take that and they will when they book him in the jail, they'll book him with his medication in a bag. And they'll give it to the booking person. I don't know if it's exactly the same in Tucson as it is in Tucson, but they give it to the booking person and they take in the medication in the back. When I used to book people, they used to document it and they used to do the medication. And then what they do is they bring the person to the person who's arrested to the window and say, what medications do you need? And then they find a way when they get in there the doctor will come and administer and do a health check and make sure they get the medication they need. A police officer, against policy, it would be against policy if they did what he said they did. And if they did it, they need to be held accountable. I don't believe they did it, but I wasn't there. And if they did it, we'll find out, because he needs to file a complaint against them, because there's no justification for taking a person's medication unless your medication is a vitamin C pill that's not prescribed and you're just a supplement that you claim you need. And even in them cases, people want to cover their own butt, so they'll just package it up and take it as his prisoner, what they call prisoner property.
They take everything, they impound it, okay? Now, this arresting officer comes up to me and says,
they cannot impound guns and leave them in the car. So it probably took them forever to get this stuff out. Sheriff Bianco said that they found IDs, passports. They have to take all of that, take pictures of it, then put it into evidence bags. They have to take his guns. They have to run the serial numbers, and then they have to take them and put them into evidence. So they have to get gun boxes. They have to clear the gun. They have to separate the ammo and put them all into safe gun boxes in order to submit them into evidence under his personal property. I'm sure most agencies do it exactly like we did it. We didn't recreate the wheel. And so they don't leave your guns, your medicine, and important stuff in a car that they impound. They have to remove that stuff. So there's no question if your stuff was stolen or damaged as a result of them towing your car. So they probably did take a long time to do all that stuff while he was in the back of the car. Typically what they do is they book you in and they put your stuff in the evidence later. And all you have to do is when you get out of jail, you just have to go down to the station and say, this is my property. And they give you all the property that belongs to you. Suitcases, whatever your property is. Some stuff they leave in the car. If you agree that you want to just leave it in the car.
The Secret Service and the FBI want to speak with you, okay? And this is when his narrative started, I guess, falling apart, because he told me that, there's a serious situation, there's been assassination attempts on Trump, blah, 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 and they're going to investigate this, they're going to interrogate you, blah, 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 right? And so now we're about 3.5 hours into this ordeal, I would approximate. And this arresting officer drives me to an RV where the feds and the Secret Service are stationed. Now, what occurs to me is that the fulcrum in all this event is this one arresting officer. He's the one passing information to the feds, to the Secret Service, and he's the one coming back to me and relaying this information, although it was very clear that he was skewing this information. So, and I will explain why.
Now let me add this to it. Typically, unless I'm crazy, in a high-profile situation like this, a sheriff deputy isn't the one communicating with Secret Service. It's probably a commander. There is no way that the sheriff's office is investigating a potential person that brought a gun to a Trump rally and Sheriff Bianco is not there. I guarantee you. And if Sheriff Bianco is busy, his deputy sheriff or the lieutenant, captain, sergeant is probably overseeing this. There's no way that they're going through this process and it's just a sheriff deputy just investigating. This is a big deal. Sheriff Bianco did a press conference. So Sheriff Bianco was probably there. And a regular deputy or sheriff don't communicate with the FBI. I mean, they don't communicate with Secret Service. They don't. It would not be a deputy level. It would be a commander level talking to the commanders in the Secret Service. And the deputy drives you there, but the commander is the ones that are communicating this back and forth. Because if Secret Service need to talk to you, something crazy has happened. And Sheriff Bianco is probably in the middle of this happening, right? All right, let's keep going.
We go to this RV. He steps out of the car, and at this point, as hot as it was before, now it's freezing inside the car. Just a little detail, I'm talking like, and by the way, I'm in sandals and a shirt because I showed up for desert weather, and I'm in this freezing cold car. I would approximate now it's 6:30-ish or so p.m. He walks out of the car. He has a conversation with individuals that are Secret Service and feds. And he's in this conversation, which I'm watching through this kind of grid that they have in the back of the trucks, you know, that kind of prison grid looking thing. I could tell from the reaction of the Secret Service and feds that they're just not kind of buying his story. They seem very disinterested. And what I would also assume, and you know, all of our research, the FOIAs, the body cams, all that stuff's going to reveal this because this is going to turn into a major lawsuit. And I'll tell you.
So when he does release the body-worn camera footage and different things of that nature, I'm going to review it. And if he's right, he's right. I'm going to advocate for him if the cops were messing him over. I'm 100%. Roll the clip.
Tell you how major this lawsuit is in a moment. So in this interaction, they seem very disinterested, right? And I
don't understand why he haven't explained the license plate thing. Because it sounds very, I don't know what they're thinking and why they're doing what they're doing. And it's just, the guy told me to move over. And if you got a fake license plate on and your vehicle is not registered at all, and not even in Nevada, what do you think they're going to do?
Tell that they're not buying his bullshit. I could tell that, you know, these are, you know, you have smart officers, you have smart authorities, and then you have not very smart ones. And I could tell that these guys were a lot sharper than this arresting, you know, fool, I would say. And then he comes in the car and he says, well, they're going to come to the police station and interview you. Okay. By the way, at this point, we're, you know, now 4 hours into it, and I've been asking to speak with a lawyer, get my one phone call, and he's refused to do so. Which, by the way, I never got my one phone call. They did not allow it, okay?
They don't have to necessarily provide you the phone call on the side of the road. I have never in the history of arresting people ever had them make a phone call in the back of a car. What happens is you get a phone call from jail, because you do deserve a phone call, but you're not getting one. I'm not going to pull my phone out and let you call some lawyer. Now, in DUI situations, we have allowed people to do that. You take them to the station, you give them a phone book, and they get a chance to call their lawyer or somebody to represent them, right? But in situations like this, it's a lot more simple. You don't have to let them call somebody while you're on the side of the road in a police vehicle. When they get to the substation or when they get to the holding cell, then they have to provide at least a phone call at some point, right? You read the Miranda rights. If they want to talk to you, they will. If they refuse and they want a lawyer, you just stop talking to them, because they don't need a lawyer because you're not talking to them. You don't need to talk to them. You don't need to further your investigation into the conversation. You just take them to jail. And then they have an opportunity to contact a lawyer, to have a phone call or whatever. But it's not always typical that, you're in an investigation and somebody get to call a lawyer on the side of the road. That's typically, I've never, in the history of me being a police officer in all of my FTOs, and I don't ever remember ever a time where somebody had ever gotten arrested and they got a phone call in the back of a patrol car. I've never seen it. It can't happen. I've given people a phone call in DUI situations at the substation. We give them a freaking phone book and let them whip the phone book out and call a lawyer attorney. But no other situation have I ever heard of that.
So I then am taken to the police station, and I'm taken into a room where essentially it's a 6-foot glass barrier between this holding area and where all the police are seated in front of their computers, right? And I'm reading the penal code over there. There's a penal code on the wall that says that immediately upon request by the person that's being detained, they're supposed to give my one phone call.
Yeah, it's probably within reason, right? Immediately upon a request, you get a phone call, but within reason, with due regard or with the circumstances being reasonable, right? You don't just get a person just murdered 6 people and you take him into custody and you give him a phone call. It's like, no. We're going to finish the investigation. We're going to figure out what's going on. We're going to have to talk to witnesses. We don't have time to do that with you right now. You're going to sit here and wait and do whatever it takes, and then we're going to get you your phone call at some point when it's convenient for the whole totality of situations. That's the way I interpret it. Now, if I'm wrong, some lawyer can tell me I'm wrong, and I'll change my position. But that's the way it's always been. I've never heard anybody ever getting sued for not giving a person a phone call in the situation that he described.
But again, over and over again, this officer refuses. And at this point, since I told you they let me have my water with my supplements in there, now I'm feeling a little bit better, okay? Now I'm feeling the savage come out, because I know what this guy's doing, okay? And so I stand up, and by the way, I'm chained to a bench. So when I say I stand up, I mean I pretty much stand up in place, and I say, listen, man, this penal code right here, and I read him the penal code, how immediately upon request, I'm supposed to get to speak to get my one phone call, which I was going to call my lawyer, right? And I say it over and over again, and the FOIA request and the body cameras will reflect that while I was in that holding cell, I had approximately an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. I was repeatedly asking for my one phone call, and this so-called officer was refusing to give it to me, making every single excuse. And so then I turned to the other police officers and I said, listen, guys, because now my brain's coming back, okay? And I understand law.
What about the fake passports and stuff? Why is he just not addressing that part? Sheriff Bianco said that you had identity theft. Is what it sound like. You had passports with different names on it. You didn't have a license plate on your car. Your vehicle wasn't registered at all. But when you make a video like this, unless it's later in the video that we don't have, you need to address that, bro. You're making it seem like they just randomly didn't do nothing for you. When they start finding fake IDs and stuff in your car, like you start getting to the point where you're not a reasonable person. You're not being reasonable. You into some stuff more than what you're saying, potentially.
Much better than most documentary makers and content creators because I've actually studied law. And in fact, that morning I was listening to law classes, which are available on my computer and verifiable before I even drove out, which is like what I do on my spare time. And the reason why I do this stuff is because through doing a lot of content, I've realized that, this officer who I believe is a corrupt and criminal individual who's operating under the color of law, a lot of them exist out there. And after having seen multiple aspects of corruption, some that affected my life deeply, and there's a story to that too, because one of the reasons I even got into this is because of immense court corruption by a woke Canadian judge. I won't get into
All right. That's all I got for you, man. I think his thing was it's like an hour long. I just got 17 minutes that we can do. Maybe he go in and address some of the other stuff. But at the end of the day, I really don't believe this guy as much. Being a cop, experiencing these things, if you're a sovereign citizen, just say you're a sovereign citizen, you don't believe in government, you don't believe in laws. And therefore, you went to the thing demanding that they should let you do whatever you want to do. I can almost guarantee this, and I'm not sure, but I can almost guarantee that's his approach. Now, he say something different. I can almost guarantee he went there and they told him, you can't bring a gun in here. Hey, how about you pull your car over to the side? You brought a gun through the inner perimeter. And he probably took the approach of, I can do what I want to do. It's my Second Amendment right. I can carry a gun and do whatever I want to do anywhere I want to do it. If you don't like it, then too bad. Oh, I don't have to register my vehicle. I don't need to abide by the roadway or something. Oh, I don't need to do that. And then he got a fake IDs and stuff, and he ain't gonna bring that up. Come on, man. Anyway, I hope that I'm wrong about this, and I hope this guy's 100% right and he can sue these officers for everything he said. But my gut is telling me that there's some missing gaps, and Sheriff Bianco would not get on and say that they found these things in his vehicle if they never found these things. Because these are all in a probable cause statement that they have to then present. There will be, let me just say this and I'm gonna get off here. There will be no bond if they made up this stuff. When you get a person and you arrest them, before you can book them in the jail, you have to have a probable cause statement that you then provide to the booking people. And the probable cause statement has to meet the element of crimes in the penal code that they violated. They do a brief check in booking area to make sure you have your probable cause statement. If you somehow don't, they send that to the judge or the magistrate, who they either, depending on when you get arrested, they look at it that night or they look at it in the morning. And the judge is going to look and say, oh, you don't have probable cause to arrest this person, dismissed. They're out. We're not even talking about nothing else. You don't have probable cause. But if you do have probable cause, which means that you have a statement to say this is the crimes that the person committed, and here is the evidence that the person did this. We have pictures, we have videos, we have this and that's probable cause to arrest somebody. Then the judge is going to go through and say, how do you plead? I plead innocent, victim, whatever. And they're going to say, hey, we'll bond you out at this amount. And we'll see you on your court date to deal with these charges. You can't just make up something about a person. You can, but it's not. It's not. I don't know how you can. I mean, I know you can. I know that there's people that probably lie and get people, cops be doing dirty stuff. But from my experience, it's not very easy to get through to that. There's so many different checks and balances in areas. When we write case reports, we would have to submit them through our sergeant. Our sergeant would read the case report and reject it. If you don't have probable cause and you did that, you got to articulate your probable cause better, because you didn't articulate clearly what you just explained that happened. Or even if the things happen, you didn't articulate it clearly where somebody can read this and diagnose. So you need to figure out what you need to say, add, take away, change the paragraph to rewrite so somebody can read this and diagnose what you said happened. And that don't mean you lie on it, because the body worn camera ain't gonna lie. But you got to have it. You got to have your documents in place in a lineage to where it makes sense, spelling, grammar, All that stuff needs to be appropriate in a police report. So I used to get my stuff rejected all the time because I misspell stuff. Tenses be off. I'd be asleep. It'd be 12 o'clock in the morning. I got X for like 3 lines. And I woke up and finished. And I didn't realize I had X in all my thing right here. And then when the sergeant reads it and she approves it, it goes to a lieutenant. And the lieutenant probably spot reads all of it. And then they'll reject it to the sergeant, and then there'll be a problem. So it's a lot of moving parts here. But anyway, the video is long enough. I love you guys. Appreciate you. See you on the next one.